Hello, Dimitri.
Hi,
Thank you.
Darlene.
Thank you for meeting with me again to talk some more. Today, I wanted us to talk about some things in the Bible and the church and how they've been misconstrued and used instead of the true teachings of Jesus and what was intended. They're used for the inverse of that and projection and anti-shadow work.
Right. Yes. Well, yes, I think, we are sort of able to make, somewhat comprehensive insights, regarding this and regarding how the, if you wish, the whole thing was sort of turned in reverse because if you look at,
Not sort of.
right, right, not sort of exactly.
Completely,
Yes.
overtly.
Yeah, and yet, in a way, that is quite subliminal, because people don't
Yes.
see it. You know what I mean? And if you right, I think one of the basic teachings of Jesus was the shadow. In terms of the mote and the beam, the whole thing was about to see the splinter and that we project on the other, that it's our own shadow. And what we're going to talk about today is showing that they the whole thing was literally um, oriented towards the full inverse of that, to teach people how to project their shadow and not take responsibility of it. And which is like the full upside down version of the teachings. And as we have been discussing, for instance, in the issue that is now sort of has completely like taken over the Dutch kingdom with the Zwarte Piet, the Black Peter.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very very powerful example of, for instance, what they did to Peter, the Apostle Peter, where Peter was turned into a scapegoat, into a black sheep.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody would go, oh, Peter is the denier, and meaning he denied, the Son of God, I mean, that's a big thing, people, that from then on, people sort of would look at Peter like that, and then obviously, when then they try to justify that and then say, oh yeah, but Jesus forgave him, and all of that. But
Well,
that does not. Sorry,
that's
go ahead.
part of turning Jesus whiter and turning Peter blacker, because it, they literally did it with the skin color of Jesus, turned him into blonde hair and blue-eyed, which there's no way he could have been in that time period, in that location. But turning it into this the spotless lamb and all good and everything, that and every Easter that same story is reiterated, and so it's a reprogramming every year of that's a big part of the days leading up to Easter, that story is retold and retold and retold, and by now it's ingrained and programmed completely into everyone, that it's just the truth, and they believe it as such, and there's no question about that. And it isn't just Peter, but then it becomes, projecting all of that onto people of color, people with black skin or any skin other than white. And it becomes the template and the teaching of how to do that.
Exactly. And also, right, the whole idea of the spotless lamb was another attempt to to wash away the shadow, because it doesn't jive with the teachings, that Jesus came to teach and to show how to carry his or one's shadow. The whole thing was to demonstrate how to, in a symbolic way. And then at the end of times, according to, I think, the prophecy, there would be a return to fully, because if the work wasn't finished, I mean, with the symbolization of it. But then the whole thing of the spotless lamb, and the whitening, and having no sin, which is also being shadowless, which is completely in disagreement with the teachings. And also the Immaculate Conception, the idea that, he was born from a mother in a way that there was no sex, no physical intercourse, which is all like, and it goes deep, because the churches, they will, for instance, I heard yesterday someone tell me that this is the way they deal with racism in the church. They will literally, they say things like, you need to rip it out of your heart, rip it out of you. And instead of saying, this is your shadow and you need to accept it, you need to see it,
Rip it out.
Yeah, rip it out. And it's not part of you. Well, the only way to navigate racism is, among others, to disclaim it, but also to see it in yourself. No one is spotless in that sense. No race, is free of racism and all of that. Obviously, the symbol, the global symbol, became the black race. But the idea would be indeed that you cannot rip it out. You have to acknowledge it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So the whole thing became a process to drill people. Look, when you go to church every Sunday and you keep getting these teachings drilled into you, one, Peter the denier, Judas the betrayer, and the woman being inherently evil, because, mind you, Eve was the one who, according to the teachings, was the one who went with the serpent and who made Adam eat of the fruit. It's all a teaching to not take self-responsibility. Adam ate from the fruit because he wanted to, but this was blamed on the woman. So you get the woman and the black woman, and then this stuff permeates. It seeps through into everything, into medicine, into science, into the law.
Well, it's everything is divided either into black and white, or male and female, or one. Everything we have learned to divide everything: feelings, happy and sad, strong and weak, that one is good and one is bad. And that's the overriding program for everyone in every pair. And it's we have to see that it's the whole. We need both, that one isn't good and one is bad, we need both. We need the union, and it's everything. Every pair has been ingrained and programmed into us to divide and pit one side against the other in everything. And then to do that inside, if you're doing that inside your mind, of course it's going to happen externally as well.
That is exactly the whole thing of divide and conquer, and the Hegelian dialect of, you know, thesis, synthesis, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and that's the way, you know, they drive people into these programs, you know. And also, but right, the dividing of this is such, people need to look, this is such a powerful program that people don't, you know, if you tell them, you know, do not divide things in positive and negative, you know, people will swear by positivism, you know. That's like an example, you know. They but this right, this is the thing, the one is bad and the other is good, you know, in terms of the opposites. And then you get the projection is based on that. Once we divide, once we reject the shadow, it becomes a projection onto the other.
Because nobody wants to be the bad one, whatever the bad one is.
Right. But it's obviously, but there's even, it's good to mention this, there's also, because once you get into these tangos, you get also the, you know, the victim will also keep playing the victim, you know, role. And so the abuser has to see that that they're abusing themselves in terms of their own shadow. So when you discriminate, like the Dutch Prime Minister said recently, and even Jesse Jackson sort of answered him in a letter. And the Dutch Prime Minister says, you know, with the Zwarte Piet, he had so-called a change of heart, you know, which of course was not. And he says, okay, now we can see that black people are hurt by this symbol. But he says the symbol is not racist, meaning you feel it as such, you know, which is a insult upon injury. You know what I'm saying? But the point is that, but then you get indeed that the racist doesn't realize that he is also hurting himself by doing this. He thinks, or you get this, you get people say, oh, you know, if your customs are insulting your best friend, then don't do them. No, you are hurting yourself also.
Yes.
Because you are cutting off your shadow and externalizing it on someone else. So you need to see that the betrayer and the denier is in yourself, you know, it's not out there. And then also, so you're cutting off your shadow, and you are going to, you know, pay for that, to put it in such terms, you know. So people need to see that they need to see this, not for the other. You know, you need to see it. So Prime Minister Rutte needs to see that it's not damaging only the black people in the Dutch kingdom. It's hurting himself.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? And because if we don't boil it down to self-responsibility, people don't care. You know? You have to see it. You have to see it in yourself. You have to see that when you keep projecting this stuff on others, you're also damaging yourself.
Yes, but it's also the first defense mechanism is to deny that it's even happening, that it's not happening, that either they shouldn't be feeling hurt, or what's in the past is in the past, or something to that effect, to wash it away. Because it is hard to look at this, and racism is one of the most painful things to look at and see our part in, because it isn't enough to just say, oh, I'm not racist because blah blah blah, whatever. It's we do have to look at what's been done systematically. We do have to look at things that have been ingrained in us and our beliefs and things unconsciously that we probably aren't even aware of.
No, but you see, and this is important because the yesterday I did some thinking about, or some things came out, but the idea of so this is a good example. What they're trying to do now with the Black Peter symbol in the Dutch kingdom is this. It's a very interesting struggle, and I've been asking very much, to certain people in big positions to try to not suppress the whole thing, let it come out. And the point is this. So now what they want to do is say, okay, we're going to paint the Black Peters different colors. So it's not going to be black Peter anymore. So imagine the oxymoron is that, we're going to paint the Black Peter non-black colors. It's like
Covering
you
it
can.
up.
Yeah, exactly. They cannot. It's like quicksand. The more you try to run away from the shadow, the worse it gets.
It's like putting makeup on, skin cancer. Like
that's what it is. And so that this is why it's very important in terms of historical abuse and historical, slavery. It's the same like somebody who has been sexually abused. There is a very powerful effort within the justice system, the medical system, but also in other systems to cover it up. Like, when you go to a psychiatrist and you get antidepressives, what is happening is they're covering up memories, because the depression and the anxiety and even the psychosis is an attempt of the buried memories to break out. So obviously, when it comes out as a psychosis, it's not a nice thing, but it's necessary that it comes out. And so then you get the antidepressives, anti-anxiety, then you get, and now they've even sort of announced it as some great development that all of a sudden we have on the island also shock therapy, which is not only the washing away of it, but it's the wiping clean of the slate of it, meaning totally, because all of these systems, both individually and collectively, they don't want to see the abusive past.
Yes.
Or
the abusive present.
No, exactly, because it will continue if you don't deal with it, and it will continue. This is why we're still where we are, but I did a little thing the other day on Stockholm levels. And then I said that the deepest level, it takes people will come out of the deepest sleeper state, which is where they fully deny and wash off all of their memories regarding it. And they go back into this, sleeper slave state. And then it's a struggle to bring it out, big struggle, especially in this system. And then you get the system trying to wipe it off again, with customs, with programming, with the church, and then with the drugs, and even with the shock therapy. So the painting of the Black Peter different colors is painting over the true history. And there is a real effort, and as we are sort of getting into it today regarding religion, to cover up the abuse. Because when I project it all outward, I can never see it inside of myself.
Yes. And that's the whole thing when Jesus incarnated, it's like the sun in the sky creates a shadow. Well, that's what Jesus created, the individual and the shadow. And the moment someone is confronted with their shadow, it's very painful. And if one isn't ready for that, they will scramble and look for ways to wash it away, cover it up, project it, get rid of it somehow. And that's what we are talking about today, how this started with the apostles and those closest to Jesus, to use them all to wash it away, because even making Jesus whitewashed and white is dismissive of the true work and the true sacrifice that he came here to do and did. It's whitewashing that away too, in essence.
And that is the thing, the gaslighting, the mind control is to hide the thing in plain sight, but tweak it and reinterpret it, and exactly to reinterpret the whole story towards the full opposite, the full inverse of what it was meant to be, and that's smart in an evil sense, That's kind of, because then obviously you harness the power of the whole story. Because people are wired, the 12 apostles and Jesus, that's like the basic story that sort of governs every mind. And then you turn that upside down,
Yes. And it's
so sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, that's it.
So I was just going to say it's religion is one of those things that is very difficult for people to step back and question anything. It's a tradition, and if my parents were Catholic and I was raised Catholic, then I will go to the Catholic Church and keep going. And people really hold on to these customs and traditions, and it's very difficult to step back and really be reflective and really be honest and look at things, because it shakes things up, and that's scary to look at my whole belief system, my whole upbringing, my whole family relation. If I'm questioning that, it's scary. It's scary to question that, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it, because what we need to side with is the truth. And the truth is the truth. The truth doesn't hold on to traditions and customs and rituals. The truth is the truth. And when we side with the truth, that's like the verse that says there's no stone unturned, or something like that, with the return of Jesus, because the truth is the only thing that will be left standing. And so if we are holding on to traditions or lies or stories or things that aren't true, all of that has to crumble. It has to crumble away, because now is the time for really the return of the truth.
Exactly. It's the time of the destruction of the illusions. These bubbles, which are projection bubbles, are the illusions. People stuck in their bubbles, and the no stone unturned in a way correlates with the what Shiva in the East stands for as the destroyer of illusions, and they put him on the logo of CERN in terms of the destroyer of worlds.
Really?
With the atom.
I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, and also with the atom bomb, Oppenheimer quoted a scripture of the Bhagavad Gita referring to Shiva as the destroyer of worlds, because they think it's the destroying the atom,
Mm-hmm.
But the real meaning is the destroyer of the illusions, and as you said, the traditions. I mean, we are struggling. I mean, heavily with this Black Peter tradition in the Dutch kingdom. And look how this is very interesting, because the islands are themselves sort of looked upon by Holland as the Black Peter,
Mm-hmm.
and the islands don't want to let go of this thing. They cannot see, that the Black Peter means that you are inherently bad.
Bad.
There's a saying in Dutch that says, "De Zwarte Piet toebedelen," meaning I give you the Black Peter, meaning you're guilty.
Yes.
You're guilty before anything, and but so they cannot talk about the power of tradition. So what has been done? They have been fed this as little children, and then they say, no, it's a child. You see, this is the big one. It's a child party. It's a child party. That's the mantra. They keep
Mm-hmm.
selling this stuff, and they say, what are you fussing about? It's just a child party, and they love it. And then it's like, so these kids they put this into them as little kids, almost like, when little children go to the church and they keep hearing the story, they keep hearing the story of Peter and Judas and Eve. And so when they're now adults, they think this is, what are you talking about? This is our tradition, And the islands are in a heavy Stockholm because they have been colonized, so they are the slaves. I mean, it's crazy,
Yeah. Well, in the U.S., they don't just have Zwarte Piet one day a year. It's pretty much every day, because especially it is all over, but I think especially in the South, because there are so many remnants of slavery times that it's the same thing, that people don't see a problem with having statues or buildings named after heavily racist events or people. And I guess, like you were saying with the children, if you're a child and you're going to this celebration and everyone around you is saying, this is fun, this is great, you're not really in a position of power, and you don't want to be the one spoiling the fun, and so you just learn to repress your feelings of sadness or feelings of anger at this, and just, again, the positivism and, oh, this is fun. And so by the time you become an adult, you don't even recognize it. You have to really unravel to see how this has been done to you, but now you're playing a part in it too, and keeping it going.
No, exactly, because there's, when you put someone down or you make fun of someone, it gives you a high. This is the stuff of psychopath and sociopath and narcissists. They get a hell of a high off of hurting you. It can be physically, but it can also be in a tradition. Like for instance, the Zwarte Piet thing. It used to be like this. They would show the kids little stories, and they would let the Zwarte Piet, the Black Peter, do some arithmetic. They would go, okay, the Zwarte Piet goes 2 and 2, and then the Zwarte Piet would say 6, and then everybody would go, ah. So it's the buffoon, and you make fun of the buffoon. And, you just got to go a little bit back in the past, and you will see that there were shackles around his ankles. Slowly, they've tried to sort of facelift the image to hide, that it was a
Association with the
slave.
slave. Yeah.
Yeah, they were high. And now the last version is to paint it, give it different colors, but so what when you celebrate that image, it makes you feel powerful as a white person. It makes you feel better. Most people that have a very big inferiority complex, their only way of surviving that is by having others scapegoated around them, putting people down, because then I am high, and then I'm good. So this thing serves the very self construct. For instance, in our setting of a false pride, like the Dutch kingdom has a golden chariot, they call it the Gouden Koets, that they still drive around in, believe it or not, which was made out of stolen gold from slavery. But you're not going to believe this one. On it is written, there's pictures of slaves and black slaves and Eastern slaves, like from Indonesia, and children bowing down to white people, right? And the slogan is this: they still ride around in this thing, and the slogan is white is above everything, and black is there to serve us. Meredith, they still ride around in this thing in Holland. This is too much or not?
No, I can't even say anything. That's so terrible. And symbols are so subliminal. So these symbols and these pictures go right into the unconscious. And so they're riding around for hundreds honestly, this has been going on for thousands of years, but and that's the image and the subliminal message. And Zwarte Piet also was associated with the devil and being bad and evil, and then turned into more of a buffoon. But that's what was done to black slaves in America too. That the presumption of there's something inherently bad and evil with skin.
And with skin and with
skin
hair
color.
and with features and with the hair, we would in the Caribbean, you would say that's bad hair. That's the way the hair was referred to, of black people. It's bad hair, and the whole thing, and it's been, as you say, but today, like to what we're doing now, we're going to the roots of this, and we're exposing it, and we're showing, if you ask me, beyond, we don't need statistics and all of that to prove this. It's common sense. Someone told me the other day that they were someone who is in the management team of a big firm, and so they got this new GM, and the GM comes in to give his first speech to his team, right? This is a true story. And the first thing he does when he sits down with his team, he says this. He says, one of you sitting on this table will ultimately betray me. I mean, so that Last Supper speech, which is completely false. And, it's like saying, one of you will deny me. That is himself. he is projecting on his team, his own shadow. But
Agenda.
this,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So he doesn't. But so mind you, this is, I've seen a lot of people throughout the years, for therapy, and I am kidding you not. Most of the abuse of women, the men tell me literally, the woman is the cause of the fall. Eve caused the fall. Women need to be abused.
Punished.
Meredith, this stuff is ingrained into the hard disk of people. This is the most important story because it's the very essence of the development of the West. And this is why for instance, the King Arthur tradition was the right one, and they killed it. But that's the round table, and everybody is the same. And up to today, if you tell a woman, why can't a woman be a priest in the church or a pope or something, and the woman will tell you it's wrong, and if you ask someone, why hasn't there ever been a black pope, this is the programming of the mind, and to make the children project and never see their projections, and never, this is the worst. This is probably the most the powerful thing, that has ever happened on the earth. People think, oh, it's just a party. What are you talking about? And it's like, no, this is the foundational program.
Definitely. And then because it's done to everyone of every shade of skin, we all have it in us, and again start dividing things up into one is good and one is bad, and that just becomes how we do things, because it's been there for so long. And that's what we want to bring up today, is how Jesus and the apostles were used to promote this and teach this. Not that was their true intent at all, but there are many stories and things in the Bible that were either left out, teachings or phrases or things that would demonstrate other to this agenda, that were left out and hidden.
Exactly. Well, the whole thing works like a manual, a programming manual, because you program people by splitting the self up, in opposites, and then those opposites and more opposites. So it's a programming. It's a stairway to hell. It's a program. As a matter of fact, there was to split the mind. When you make somebody project, you're splitting the atom. And this is why they put Shiva on the CERN, because that's the upside down self. And this is why I think they said that Peter was upside down, crucified, or buried like that. And that's basically another symbol of saying, Peter was basically upside down, and he was evil.
Bad.
And
Yes.
yeah, and there's a song, we grew up with the song of Zwarte Piet, and they would call him Piet kabrit. Kabrit is from a goat. That's a goat in the language. And because, as you just said, Zwarte Piet used to be represented as Krampus, which is that goat, the evil goat. So you got there, Zwarte Piet, kabrit. So you're equating the black race with the devil, and you're equating Peter with the devil, and then you go like, oh, so now I get it. This is why they say he was crucified upside down, right?
Yeah.
You know, and then you get the whole picture, and then you get it that then a GM sits on a table and he will look at his team and he will say, you will betray and deny me, you know, and then he will tell the women, you all are inherently hysterical, because the woman has been the template for mental disease in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
People don't know the history of psychiatry. Freud and Jung separated because Jung cherished the female, and Freud said the woman has a penis envy. I mean, believe it or not, Freud said women are envious of men because they lack a penis. I mean,
that sounds like a projection.
But I mean, you know, and then you get that psychiatry was erected in Paris on Bleuler, Charcot, Freud, and they said the hysterical woman, that's the template of insanity. So women have been always seen as hysterical, emotional, non-rational beings, and they are so basically, mind you, you know, talk about projection, and then, you know, and then you get that the whole of psychiatry all of a sudden becomes the very thing, the very methodology to cut off the shadow, the anxiety. So when a woman our justice system is built to protect the abuser.
I'm aware.
They will say 1,000,000 times quicker that the abuser has rights. But listen, we have in the talking again about the Dutch kingdom on Aruba, we have like for the past 10 years that every case of sexual abuse of children, the perpetrator, the male perpetrator, he gets no punishment. Like the last case was a man who abused of his 2 nieces or something, and he got I think it was 12 months, and in this system, the Dutch system, you get a third off of that if you behave yourself. This has been the case for every case. There's been outrage upon outrage because the system blames the victim.
Well, and it's also set up to reward and keep in power the same people and keep under and less than the others. And that's part of the whole division and the monarchy system that you were talking about, and they ride around with that because that's the way they want it, you know, and what a way to discredit and project upon women, people of color, and children. But those are the groups that are the closest to God and the closest to Mother Earth and the closest to the collective unconscious. And that's not a coincidence either. To discredit those very groups, which that actually encompasses the vast majority of the earth. So the ones wanting to keep the power, you know, like I wasn't kidding when I said, Freud, that sounds like projection, because he's envious of what women have, or he was.
Totally,
can't say that. But so discredit, call them crazy. You know, calling someone crazy is a great way to get nobody to listen to them. Well, they're just crazy. But
And you know, that is the very, listen, if you look at the justice system, it boils down to gaslighting people and discrediting them and basically calling them crazy, you know. And this is why the system is in cahoots with psychiatry, you know. They bring in the psychiatrist to sort of, you know, declare somebody mentally unstable, or, you know, all of that. It's gaslighting, because when you, so look at the gaslighting in Prime Minister's Rutte last statements. He says first, you know, okay, I had a change of heart, because first he was blatantly making fun of the whole thing, you know, and they coach him to cover up, you know, better, and not to come clean. And then he says, you know what, I can see your pain when you see that symbol of the Black Peter. But it's, the symbol has no racism in it. It's your imagination. So what he's saying, he's gaslighting you by saying you are hysterical and insane, and you are seeing something in that symbol that is not there. I mean, he just gaslighted a whole kingdom.
mm-hmm.
Because that's what they do. They attack your sanity. This is what happens whenever an abused person comes forward against the system. You know, you are discredited and you are made to feel that you are not right.
Yes. Well, it's all the projections. You're crazy and you're bad because you are breaking up this family, or you are breaking up this system, or and the person who's coming forward with the truth is in no way bad or breaking up the family. If abuse occurred, the person who broke up the family was the abuser. They're the ones who did something bad, but they get everyone else to carry their guilt and wash it away for them. And that's how they get away with it. And so, you know, we've talked about the victims need to see their part in things too, because if they're washing it away, they're helping the abuser get away with it. If they stop washing it away, they're not helping the abuser wash it away. Then their shadow will come back to them.
That's the important point. Exactly. Because that's it. If the abused become contained, then the shadow will correct. The system has been using gaslighting and shadow washing to run away from their own shadow and the blood. And literally in church, they tell you, pray for the blood of Jesus, and it washes away all your sins. And it's like, what? So they've been using the blood illegally, you know, but when people start to stop, when people stop stop carrying the guilt, because the gaslighting is, you are guilty, you know, you are the one that's not right. When they stop carrying the guilt of the gaslighting, then it will. And you see, that's what the scripture means, which has been emerging a lot in the dreams of in those days. They say, run to the mountains. It means the mountain of the self, which is the stairway which we climb when we are aware of our shadow. When we do the shadow work, we run to the mountains, and it means that the tsunami of the shadow is coming back, because the shadow has been under embargo in this system for 2,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
You see, this is why today is so important, because today we've started to expose that the Bible was used as a manual to wash shadow, meaning to make people project everything on the other, and then gaslight them to wash it for them, you know, to accept that projection.
Yes.
So to flee to the mountains, because it's happened. The prophecy is saying that at the end, there would be a return, a second coming, and the right version would be, revealed of the teachings, and that then will come the tsunami, of the shadow. That's the great tribulation. And those who are doing shadow work, they will be, on the mountain, symbolizing they will not, they will be okay with the compensation.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also if you aren't fighting it, the compensation, and you allow it and accept it and see it for what it is, see it as not a punishment, but this, I need this. I need this feeling side that I've been cutting off. I need this to be whole. It isn't bad. There isn't something inherently wrong with feeling sad or feeling afraid or feeling whatever it is, that it's not something bad. It's something necessary, and I need that other half. And if we don't fight the compensation, it's gentler than if we're fighting it and resisting.
And it's also it's the very healing, and the very way we find self, which is the true self, is like a whole. It's like our coming back home, because all of the whole thing was basically, we lost self. Self is the breath of God. That's our reascending, to our true status as true divine beings. It is we those of us who know this work, we cannot be happier, about the return of the shadow, because it will take us back to, if you wish, to a heavenly state.
Yes. There's a sense of peace, but not blissing out. Not that you don't feel anything, but there's a sense of peace and relief when you stop running, because you really can't ever stop running. If you're running away from yourself, your shadow, your true self, if you're running away from that, you're always a fugitive. You're always on the run. And if you stop running and accept your shadow, surrender to your true self, there's a sense of peace that you cannot feel any other way when you're running. Because when you're running away.
But that's exactly it, because it's that peace that we need. We need the peace. We've been brainwashed with, to be happy and go lucky. And Aruba's slogan of the island is one happy island. Basically, that was when everything went wrong, because it was it's basically saying you're denying everything that's not happy. We have these slogans here that are so deadly, because the slogan is like, people don't even realize that the slogans are very important, because they're like imprinted into your mind, and then you get so right. It's the peace. We need the peace, and we know the scripture also talks about the false sense of peace and security that will come at the end. By a wrong sense of a global government and all of that. But the true peace, obviously, they do everything in reverse also. But the true peace can only come from accepting the shadow and becoming whole, and so that's exactly why the shadow work is so important, and why they hijack the whole thing.
Yes. And so, if we if we really look at the Bible, it's very, very telling what things were left in, put in, and taken out. So, you know, there have been books of the Bible found later, Gospel of Mary Magdalene, Gospel of Judas, Gospel of Peter. None of those are found in the Bible, the commonly, you know, circulated Bible. And we have to look at that. Why were those left out? And then again, look at the things that were left in, stories that were left in, of Mary Magdalene being a prostitute, of Peter denying Jesus, of Judas betraying Jesus. Those things are left in and perpetuated, or put in and perpetuated. And we have to really look at that in terms of the big picture, and as we can see what that all turned into, a template for disowning and projecting the shadow, and a teaching manual, a programming manual.
No, exactly. You know, it's obviously that these books would compromise their manual, because you know you would see that it's not the stereotypes that they put, the shadow projection stereotypes that they put in the canon, you know, and so these books would have revealed, you know, that these were, you know, to the contrary, these were the most powerful apostles, you know, and
even the things that were put in or left in the books about Peter, you know, a lot of them are disparaging remarks and things. Either, again, it is the same type of programming done to black people, black skin, slaves, the Zwarte Piet, that Peter did these things that were bad. They were inherently bad, or stupid, or wrong, that he needed to ask for forgiveness or seek forgiveness. And that's the stereotype, that it's not just even the denial. There are other things that are left in. There's some, I'll have to find it when we do the video and put it up, but there's some story where Jesus is talking to the apostles, and he says something specifically to Peter about the devil, and like making the comparison. And again, it's just like the Zwarte Piet and the being crucified upside down, that they definitely had an agenda of wanting that as the image.
no, and I actually, I think I know what scripture you're referring to, and I can't remember it by head, but I know what you're right. There is a scripture that does that, and you see it, and again, you know, when you to get a real sense of this, talk to someone who, like, but for instance, someone who is part of a religion who has so-called say that so-called says, yeah, we have sort of removed ourselves out of the Vatican, you know, the Roman Church. You have a lot of those, you know, for instance, even you know, like, I know for a fact that the Jehovah's Witnesses, they say they have gotten out of the Church of Babylon, you know, they acknowledge that the Vatican is that. But when you ask them, okay, so why were those 4 gospels chosen, and what about the rest? And then they still hold on to the idea, you know, that it's the canon, and and while they know that it's the Roman Council that chose these books, you know, and you need to have worked very up close with mind control to see that this is the way it is. People will not, things that are like really clear and obvious, like common sense supposed to, they will say no. That's where you're hitting up on a wall, a firewall, when you're not getting in there. So this is how powerful this is. What was done was very powerful. It's not
very,
like
yes.
yeah, it's very, very, very well done, because people fully and completely, bought into it and are unable. This is why the levels of the Stockholm, the sleep levels, it's so important to, if you have firsthand experience with it, you will see that. I mentioned in another video that even when you think you're out, even when you think that you have identified the abuser for what it is, there is still the last level of what is called controlled opposition, where you are still in a kind of a conspiracy theory mode, where you think you need to fight the abuse. That's another level of Stockholm, because they control both sides of the fight. So, as I said in that live, the only way to fully get out of the Stockholm levels is to find self. It's not to fight the other. The shadow will do that. If you fight something, you get distracted out of yourself. And that's why the manual, the deprogramming manual, is the shadow work, and it's how do you move forward towards self and not against something. It's very difficult, because people want to get on the road and protest and fight and burn things and all of that, and there has to be room for that, but that will in a way land you back in a form of controlled opposition, because they know that obviously many people now in the Black Lives Matter, it's a big thing, but they've seen how they orchestrate also a lot of it. It's very important, the shadow work and how to reach self, and that's where you move forward to yourself and not against or away from something.
Yes, because then your focus is outside. Your focus is, I want to get away from this person, this abuser, or I want to get away from this system or this whatever, and they're still controlling you. It's in a different dynamic, but it's still someone or something outside of you is controlling you. If that external person or system is dictating how you behave, that you're still in control, under their control.
Yes, and in every situation is this. If you fight something too much, even if it's evil, you get sucked into it. The sayings of when what you're most hunting down, you become the the hunter becomes the hunted. And so this is why I think that the teachings, and this is why the apostles and Jesus were like really dangerous for the system, which basically wants conflict and opposites fighting each other.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No, I just wanted to say before, when you were saying about when you ask other religions that broke away from the so-called Roman Church, why those four gospels, even the sayings, like how we were saying, oh, you put the Black Peter on someone, or the Judas in the group. The saying, well, it's the gospel. It's the gospel. that is synonymous with the truth. Well,
Exactly.
what if these 4 books that are, quote, the Gospels in the circulated printed current Bible aren't the truth? Then what does that say about this whole, and again, that saying is very commonplace and very well known all over. It's the gospel. That means it's the truth, and people will say something in reference to meaning it's the truth. But what if, and we know that there are things in these gospels, in these 4 gospels, that aren't the truth, such as the story of the denial of Peter and betrayal of Judas. Those aren't the truth. So then what does that say?
You see, and that is a very, very good point, because it's like almost like, the very word black is bad, or female is inherently
Less than.
or hysterical. Women are, but so, and the gospel is the truth. So this is a level of mind control that is amazing, because they've taken the very symbol of and turned it into something. You know what I mean? It's not like
They're programming triggers. That's what they are. Just like a current modern MK victim that will see Disney princesses or Star Wars or something that triggers some program. That's what they are. That's what these symbols are. To keep the programming going, and to keep it locked in place, and to keep, and they use the whole point of using Jesus and the apostles as scapegoats to project the shadow on is for control, to control people.
Exactly. You see, that is it. The definition of mind control is he or she who controls your projections, because the projection is the interpretation, meaning they control what what you see as reality, and this is why the whole thing breaks down when we are able to see our projections and own them, and to become, and the upside down illumination or enlightenment is to sort of get rid of the projections. But that's wrong. You need to see them as a part of you that you need to deal with, but that is where the whole thing breaks down, is when people are able to become aware of their projections and become in charge of their own projections, because that's why it's such a control system. It's a system that controls the very most fundamental projections, that you live in, because people live in projections, People live in their projections and their bubbles. So this is bubble management, they control your bubble. And this is why the teachings of the beam and the mode, that was the deprogramming manual that came to us, and then they hid it, of course, But I know from my own dreams that we would be able to uncover the right version, if even though it was hidden under this upside down crucifixion game.
And then, by bringing this out, people's own dreams will show them the truth too.
Absolutely.
About the things that we're talking about. Their own unconscious will comment back and hear this.
No, because that's the thing. The truth is in you, and so nobody needs to come and sort of convince you of anything. It has to come up in yourself. And obviously, there's a danger, of if you're not in the right state, that dreams can be fed to you. There can be inceptions and all of that, but there is a way via shadow work to get to the right dreams, and that is what has to guide you. So the right work doesn't depend on so the right approach would say that the shelter or the church is in you, and it comes from your own dreams. That's where the truth is. The dreams is the right dreams are like messages from the temple, where yourself resides. So it's not like in any way another gospel. It's not that. It's bringing people back to who they are and listening to themselves.
Because it's a living church. It's also not a physical building. It's the church of the living stones.
Exactly.
And the selves.
Exactly. Right. It's inside the school and the church and the justice system and the medical system is inside. It's in the self is all of that, and it's been projected outside. In this system of projection and in a church of projection, all of these fundamental pillars have been projected outside and turned into the lockdown pillars, meaning the lockdown pillars are those instances, education, medicine, law, to keep people projecting it out. Because you need to. When I used to work at the university, they would teach the students that the law is in a book, and then they learn how to play with laws and manipulate and look. But no, they should have been teaching them that the sense of justice is within. That your shadow will show you.
But if you don't know it yourself, you can't teach it to anyone else. And they believe that that quote true justice is in a book or in a piece of parchment paper, and that's it perpetuates.
Yes, and then you get obviously the system where who watches the watchers. There's nobody to police the police. There's nobody to judge the judges. So that top remains impossible to keep in check. And then add on to that they are anti-shadow practitioners. And then you get that these pillars are there to police the rest of us, but not ourselves. The top cannot be checked.
And even schools are set up to teach everything on the outside. Everything is externalized and seen from the outside and performing for the outside, and whoever's better at performing and regurgitating and not thinking and not internalizing anything or looking inward, it's all external. And so the systems feed off of each other to keep everyone in this split state where they are controlled and managed, yet don't know it and don't want to know it because they're so attached to these traditions and religions and customs and things that it's a false sense of security and safety to do things the same.
Exactly. It's a system to you get to practice the law on the little people, not on the top. Cannot see itself. It cannot practice it on itself, and it's the last to see its own issues. Police brutality is a wonderful example. You give people this amount of power, no self-awareness, where there is no law to govern them, because they are the law. And then you get this, you get in Holland, we have the same cases. You have the minorities are also murdered by police. The same thing like in the States.
And
You know, it's yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it's good that this is all coming out, because it's this whole rotting system, rotting from the inside, and everything does have to come up and out.
Exactly. It's totally rotting. It's rot. The word is right. That's the word. It's rotting. You know,
It's
the word
rotting. We
corruption
can't means what?
means rotting, means decay.
We can't put makeup on it. It's like, it's like people saying, "Oh, I'm not racist. I don't see color." But that's the same as putting makeup on it, because not seeing it doesn't mean it's not happening and you're not part of it. It just means you're not seeing it or don't want to see it. So saying I don't see color isn't the issue either. We have to see what has happened, what is happening, what's happened forever.
Exactly.
That the bad and the
Exactly.
evil's been projected on certain groups or certain people, and we have to see that.
But you see, and this is the thing. This is the thing, because when we uncover all of that abuse, we need to never bury it again. You know, never.
Mm-hmm.
The chance is very big that people will want to bury it. You know, to do as if it never happened, and also the sleeper. You know, we need to be aware of that. That the abused um, will also tend to want to wash it off. You know, and this is how powerful this is, and it may not be forgotten. You know, because if it's forgotten, as Jung said, we will repeat it. It will recur. This is why we need to, stay close to the trauma, the shadow trauma, and to not forget it. And this is the true meaning of memorials. You know, why we need memorials, and we need memory. The earth needs memory, and not to, not a shock therapy, and not time travel to so-called, go back to when it never happened. We
Or
need
to when we didn't know it happened.
Exactly.
And we can't change it either. We can't erase it. We can't change it.
Exactly.
So
and that's what's happened. And that's what's happening, because just to the last remark on this is that, like, for instance, the United Nations has ushered Holland to change the Zwarte Piet. But listen to what they say: change the Zwarte Piet, meaning, give it another color and whatever.
Yeah.
You see, so then you know you're dealing with the same agenda, because the idea is not to change it. Leave it to be a Black Peter is Black Peter. It's black, but we need to, in a very conscious way, stop it, not forget it.
Yes.
Are not cover it up.
Yes. Not paint over it. Exactly. Well, I think we started to uncover some of this today, and we will keep going in future talks. So I appreciate your time and insight. A very valuable conversation. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Meredith. And I think this is a very, very important this conversation. What we share today is very, very important. Because it's going to the very template. That this Pisces, 2,000 years of Pisces, which is these two fishes, which is the yin and the yang, which is the light and the shadow, what it was all about. And I think I've seen someone say that the Maya calendar ended last Sunday, or in any case around this time, but it would
Mm-hmm.
make a lot of sense, in the sense of that we finally get out of that sea of Pisces by
Mm-hmm.
becoming aware of the shadow. But it was all about this split, which has caused all of the problems. Keeping the two sides of ourselves split from each other.
Yes. And when
Right.
it's split inside, it always externalizes.
Exactly. And then you get wars. You get
Yes.
wars. You get that I'm going to try to kill
The bad one out there.
Yeah, and then they will try to facelift it all. Make the Black Peter look like the friend of the children. Anything to not change the template.
Yes. So we will keep going, and I appreciate this. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you
Bye.
very much. Bye.